Is obviously regular corporate tax is 25%.
It's really important to make this point. Oil and gas is set, the price of oil and gas is set on the international market. The reason why...
That's the raw commodity price, in the same way that the prices of batteries is set on the raw. Energy companies in this country are taxed at 78% on energy profits. That pushes up prices too.
No, that's wrong. Look,
it's not 78%?
It is 78%, but it's not...
You know, the raw commodity price.
It's not set by the tax rate on UK companies, is what I'm saying. It's set by the global price. You see,
I understand that, but you're saying that tax rates don't impact pricing?
I'm saying that in relation to oil and gas, they don't.
We're being scammed on our energy bills, and Ed Miliband is trying to sell us a fantasy. That's the message from a visibly frustrated Sky News host who wasn't buying the Labour politicians' claims about their 78% tax on energy profits. In this explosive exchange, we see a rare moment of mainstream media actually challenging the political establishment on their empty promises. The host rightly points out what Miliband doesn't want you to know, that international markets, not UK tax policies, determine your skyrocketing energy bills. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
Right, well, our prices went through the roof, even though we imported a very small amount from Russia. That's because whether the gas was coming from the North Sea or internationally, it was priced on the international market. That's because the truth is that the price for our oil and gas is set internationally. And let me explain, let me just let me make the point. Why did prices go through the roof when Russia invaded Ukraine? That's why we're in the grip of fossil fuel markets controlled by others, petrostates, and that wasn't about the UK tax rate. The UK tax rate could have been cut or higher, and it wouldn't have made an impact.
The moment that set viewers' screens alight wasn't just about a political disagreement. It was about a fundamental clash between political messaging and economic reality. The Sky News host's visible frustration emerged from what appears to be years of watching politicians like Ed Miliband craft narratives that sound appealing, but crumble under scrutiny. His exasperation wasn't merely theatrical, it was the reaction of someone who understands the complex machinery of global energy markets, being reduced to simplistic political sound bites.
Because the price is set internationally. I'm really sorry, but that's not correct.
Okay, well, let's put commodities aside. If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%... It
depends whether it's...
If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%, what would happen to the price? It's a separate point.
Yeah.
The floating price of commodities is a legitimate but separate point. Another point for why this country has unbelievably high energy prices is that we tax our energy companies.
No, you're wrong. I'm really sorry, but you're wrong about that. It depends.
What would happen to the price?
It depends whether it's a domestic market, where the price is set domestically.
This is a globally unquestionable factor about economics. You're right that your point also applies.
At the heart of this heated exchange was Miliband's assertion that the Labour government's 78% tax on energy company profits would somehow translate into lower energy bills for everyday Britons. It's a politically attractive claim: tax the big energy giants and pass the savings to struggling households. Who wouldn't want to believe that? The problem is, as the host immediately recognised, this narrative fundamentally misunderstands, or deliberately misrepresents, how energy pricing actually works. Complete waffle was the host's immediate, unfiltered response. It wasn't just the dismissiveness that struck viewers, but the certainty behind it. The host wasn't playing political games or scoring partisan points. He was responding as someone confronted with a claim that contradicts basic economic principles. His reaction betrayed a frustration familiar to experts in many fields, watching complex systems being oversimplified to fit political narratives. What Miliband either failed to grasp or chose to ignore is that energy prices don't exist in a neat domestic bubble that the UK government can simply adjust through taxation. The Sky News host emphasised this crucial point. Oil and gas prices are determined on the international market, much like other global commodities. The UK's domestic tax rate on energy companies is, as the host put it, a separate point entirely from the actual pricing mechanism that determines what Britons pay on their energy bills. To illustrate this reality, the host pointed to a recent painful example still fresh in consumers' minds. When Russia invaded Ukraine, UK energy prices went through the roof. despite the fact that Britain imported only a minimal amount of Russian gas. This single example demolished Miliband's implied causation between domestic tax policies and consumer energy prices. If domestic factors were truly the driving force, the UK would have been insulated from this price shock. Instead, British consumers felt the full force of global market dynamics. The UK's vulnerability to these international market forces is compounded by what the host identified as a critical infrastructure weakness: Britain's woefully inadequate gas storage capacity. While neighbouring European countries maintain substantial reserves to weather supply disruptions and price volatility, the UK's storage levels were described as concerningly low by the owner of Britain's largest gas storage facility. This infrastructure deficit leaves British consumers particularly exposed to international price swings, regardless of domestic tax policies on energy companies. This storage issue points to a broader question about government priorities that the host raised with evident frustration. While the UK government allocated a substantial £15 billion to support Ukraine domestic energy infrastructure, the very systems that could provide some buffer against international price shocks remains underfunded. The comparison isn't meant to diminish the importance of supporting Ukraine, but rather to highlight a disconnect between government spending and the immediate economic pressures facing British households. What makes the host's critique particularly compelling is that it transcends the usual political divides. This isn't about left versus right, but about factual, economic mechanisms versus political messaging. The energy market operates according to global supply and demand, international geopolitics, and infrastructure capabilities, not according to the tax rate imposed on energy companies' profits within a single nation, particularly one as dependent on imports as the UK. The ferocity of the host's response reflects something deeper than personal annoyance. It channels the frustration of millions of British consumers who find themselves caught between soaring energy bills and politicians offering solutions that don't address the actual causes. When Miliband suggests that a 78% tax will somehow trickle down to consumer relief, he's not just oversimplifying, he's potentially misleading the public about the real factors driving their energy costs. For viewers watching this exchange, the host's reaction offers a rare moment of clarity, cutting through political spin to expose the disconnect between campaign promises and economic realities. His frustration serves as a proxy for public exhaustion, with politicians who transform complex global issues into simplified domestic narratives that fit neatly on campaign literature but fall apart under scrutiny. What stands out from this Sky News exchange is something we rarely see in mainstream media: a journalist refusing to let political spin go unchallenged. The host's grilling of Miliband exemplifies critical engagement with political narratives, especially about complex economic issues like energy policy. This confrontation serves as a powerful reminder to question information from political sources. When officials make sweeping claims about tax policies solving your energy bill problems, they're often selling convenient fiction while ignoring uncomfortable market realities. The takeaway here isn't partisan. It's about becoming more discerning consumers of political messaging. The host's skepticism models what engaged citizenship looks like, seeking alternative perspectives and demanding evidence before accepting convenient political narratives.